famous man once said, and I quote, "Stupid is as stupid does." And that man was Forrest Gump. The question I pose today is stupidity more dangerous than evil? Now, many great thinkers from Dietrich Bonhoeffer to Carlo Cipolla have explored this idea. And today, we will connect their ideas to leadership, both past and present. I'm Mika, and this is what I learned today. We often fear evil leaders, naturally, those who act with cruelty and malice. But Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a German philosopher and theologian, had a different idea. He said, "Stupidity is more dangerous an enemy of the good than malice." Simply put, stupidity is worse than evil. So yeah, why? Because evil can be resisted. It has a purpose. Even if it is a bad purpose, we can understand it. But stupidity is very different. A stupid leader does not act with logic or reason. When confronted with facts, they just simply ignore them. Worse, they become angry and attack. Take, for example, King Louis XVI of France. While many did not consider him an evil ruler, his ignorance and lack of foresight led to the French Revolution. His stupidity made him fail to understand the struggles of his people and ignored all the warning signs of the violent riots. By the time he tried to act, it was too late, and he lost his crown and ultimately his head. Another example is Nicholas II of Russia, the last Tsar. His poor leadership and refusal to accept change led to the Russian Revolution. Instead of addressing the problems in his empire, he stuck to outdated ideas, ignoring warnings from his advisors. His stupidity, not his malice, led to the fall of an entire dynasty. Bonhoeffer explains that stupidity isn't about intelligence. A person can be smart but still be stupid in their action. Stupidity is about the lack of critical thinking and willingness to be manipulated. This is why some of the worst leadership failures in history have come not from evil masterminds, but from individuals who refuse to listen, adapt, or recognize their own weaknesses. Throughout history, we see the same pattern repeating itself. Leaders who lack wisdom, who are driven by ignorance or blind faith in their own decisions, creating chaos and suffering. Consider the actions of George W. Bush in launching the Iraq War. While not an inherently evil decision, the invasion was based on false intelligence, ignorance, and the inability to admit mistakes were done. The consequences were disastrous, destabilizing an entire region and leading to a prolonged conflict. This is a clear example of how stupidity in leadership leads to widespread harm. So, Bonhoeffer also noticed something interesting. Stupidity spreads when power grows. He says, and I quote, "Every strong upsurge of power in the public sphere infects a large part of humankind with stupidity." End quote. In other words, when a leader gains too much power, many people stop thinking for themselves. They follow orders without question. They repeat slogans of thinking critically. A modern example of this is Adolf Hitler's rise to power. Many people in Germany blindly followed him, ignoring the consequences of his actions. His leadership was built on manipulation, propaganda, and mass surrender of independent thought. But Hitler was not only an example. Many totalitarian leaders throughout history have relied on the stupidity of the masses to maintain control. Stalin's purges, for example, depended on people believing an absurd accusations against innocent citizens. In North Korea today, Kim Jong-il dynasty maintains its grip on power by ensuring that critical thinking is suppressed and blind loyalty is rewarded. Carlo Cipolla, an Italian historian, also studied stupidity. He created the 5 laws of stupidity. One of these laws states, a stupid person is one who causes harm to others without gaining anything for himself. Think about that. A corrupt leader steals for personal gain. We can understand that. But a stupid leader makes decisions that hurt everyone, including themselves. This makes them unpredictable and dangerous. Consider Mao Zedong's Great Leap Forward. In an attempt to rapidly industrialize China, he forced policies that led to widespread famine and millions of deaths. His refusal to listen to experts and change course caused enormous suffering, making it one of the worst leadership failures in history. Similarly, in Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe's disastrous land reform policies led to an economic collapse with widespread hunger. Not because of evil intent, I repeat myself, but because of stubborn, misguided leadership. Another example from recent history is the mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic. Some world leaders, I won't call names, Donald Trump, dismissed the virus as unimportant, spread misinformation, and refused to follow expert advice. Well, the result, millions of preventable deaths, prolonged economic damage, and loss of public trust. These leaders did not act with malice, I repeat again. Rather, they were blinded by their own ignorance and inability to process critical information. Stupidity in leadership is not always obvious at first. It often disguises itself as confident, decisiveness, or even patriotic. But over time, the cracks appear and the consequences become very clear. The danger of stupid leadership is that it does not recognize its own flaws and it refuses to learn from mistakes. That is why power often leads to greater stupidity. It creates an environment where questioning authority is discouraged and leaders become isolated from reality. History gives us many examples of leaders who showed the dangers of stupidity. Some leaders ignored experts, dismissed facts, or surrounded themselves with people who only agreed with them. Mark Twain, a famous novelist, once warned, and I quote, "Never argue with a fool. He will drag you down to his level and beat you with experience." This is especially true in leadership. Stupid leaders do not listen to advice. They make decisions based on emotions or personal beliefs rather than reasoning. Another example is the hand of the COVID-19 pandemic. Some refuse to acknowledge the seriousness of the virus, like I said earlier, ignored the scientific advice, and promoted unproven treatment. Their stupidity, and again, I repeat, I know I'm repeating myself, they cost the lives of many, many people. We also see this today. Some leaders refuse to accept science or history. They prefer simple answers to complex problems. They're often popular because they tell people what they want to hear, but their leadership leads to disaster. So, if stupidity is so dangerous, how can we fight it? Bonhoeffer believed that education was not enough. He wrote, and I quote, "Only an act of liberation, not instruction, can overcome stupidity." This simply means people must free themselves from fear and manipulation. We must think independently and question authority. We must value truth over comfort. Cipolla warned that we must always be aware of stupidity in leadership. We must not underestimate how common it is. Smart people often believe they can reason with stupidity. But as the saying goes, playing chess with a pigeon is pointless. The pigeon simply knocks over the pieces and acts like it won. So what have we learned today? Stupidity in leadership is more dangerous than evil. It grows with power. It cannot be reasoned with, and it can lead to disaster. The solution, as you know, on this podcast, we talk about critical thinking. We must think critically. We must question our leaders. We must not allow power to make us blind. I hope you learned something today. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, please share with your friends. I'm Mikel, and this is what I learned today. Bye.